Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Over the weekend, the White House released a framework for responsible immigration reform that will protect our people, put the interests of American workers first, and provide a permanent solution to DACA. Our framework includes 4 pillars: border security, including the wall, DACA legalization, ending extended family chain migration, and eliminating the visa lottery, moving us toward a merit-based system of immigration. We look forward to working with Congress to pass and sign legislation that addresses each of these 4 pillars. Looking ahead to tomorrow, as you know, the President will deliver his first State of the Union address. The theme of the address is building a safe, strong, and proud America, which is exactly what the President has worked to do during his first year in office. I don't want to get ahead of what the President will say during his remarks, but it will obviously be must-watch TV. But I do want to make an announcement about one of the most important traditions, the guest who will be sitting in the First Lady's box. I'll name a few of those individuals and a little bit about them. First, Corey Adams. Corey's a skilled welder at Staub Manufacturing Solutions in Dayton, Ohio. Last year, Corey and his wife were able to become first-time homeowners, and they will invest their extra money from the Trump tax cuts into their 2 daughters' education savings. Elizabeth Alvarado, Robert Minkins, Evelyn Rodriguez, and Freddie Cuevas. These two couples are the parents of 2 beautiful young girls, Nisa and Kayla, who were brutally murdered by MS-13 gang members. Corporal Matthew Bradford. In 2007, Corporal Bradford stepped on an IED while deployed in Iraq. He was blinded by the blast and lost both of his legs. After multiple surgeries and therapy, he became the first blind double amputee to re-enlist in the Marines. John Bridgers. Mr. Bridgers founded the Cajun Navy in 2016, a nonprofit rescue and recovery organization that responded in 2016 to flooding in South Louisiana and in 2017 to Hurricane Harvey in Texas. He and his team have helped thousands of people across the South. David Dahlberg. Mr. Dahlberg is a fire technician who saved 62 children and staff members from a raging wildfire that encircled their camp in Southern California. Officer Ryan Holitz. Ryan serves as a police officer in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In his 6 years on the force, he has been shot twice and experienced several near-death encounters. Officer Holitz and his wife adopted a baby from parents who suffered from opioid addiction, breaking down walls between drug addicts and police officers to help save lives. Ashley Leppert. Mrs. Leppert rescued dozens of Americans during last year's devastating hurricane season. Agent C.J. Martinez. Agent Martinez is a special agent for ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Unit. His investigations have led to more than 100 arrests of MS-13 gang members who were prosecuted for crimes including homicide, assault, and narcotics and weapons trafficking. Staff Sergeant Justin Peck. Last year, Staff Sergeant Peck was part of a team clearing IEDs from territory previously controlled by ISIS. When one of his compatriots was struck by a blast, he rushed to their side, saving their life while risking his own. Preston Sharp. Mr. Sharp has organized the placement of more than 40,000 American flags and red carnations on soldiers' graves as part of his goal to honor veterans in all 50 states and to challenge others to join the Flag and Flower Challenge. Steve Staub and Cindy Keplinger. These siblings started Staub Manufacturing Solutions 20 years ago. Thanks to the Trump bump in the economy, they were able to grow to new heights in 2017, and thanks to the Trump tax cuts, they were able to give all of their employees larger Christmas bonuses. Some of these individuals' stories are heroic, some are patriotic, others are tragic, but all of them represent the unbreakable American spirit and will inspire our nation to continue growing stronger, prouder, and more prosperous. And with that, I will take your questions. John.
Sarah, the news came down in the last hour that the Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, is stepping down. And we get reaction from the White House, and as the President back at the end of December was tweeting about Andrew McCabe in a less than effusive praise manner. What's he thinking about him stepping down?
Look, we've seen the numerous reports, as all of you have, and any specifics, I can tell you none of this decision was made by that of the White House, and any specifics I would refer you to the FBI, who I believe will be making a statement later today.
You say that the White House was not involved in the decision, but clearly the president seemed to be involved in a public relations campaign against McCabe.
Oh, look, the president stands by his previous comments, but in terms of the situation today, as I just said, we've seen the reports just as all of you have. We don't have any specific comments, and I would refer you to the FBI for any specifics on the things that are taking place today. Jill?
So when you say that you've seen the reports, does that mean that the president was not informed by anyone at the FBI that this was happening? Has he had any conversation of anything there?
No, he hasn't. Cecilia.
Can you say definitively then that the president did not play a role in Andrew McCabe stepping down?
Yes, I didn't say the president wasn't part of this decision-making process, and we would refer you to the FBI, where Christopher Wray serves as the director, which, as I said last week, and I'll repeat again today, the president has full confidence in him and has put the decisions at the FBI in his hands.
And did the president at any time convey that he wanted to fire Robert Mueller to anyone on the staff here?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. So, and just to kind of finish this loop, so no one at the White House contacted the FBI about McCabe. No one has put any directives or even had any discussions about his tenure at the FBI. Did anyone at the White House?
Not that I'm aware of it. Nothing specific to McCabe and his stepping down as of today, if that is what is being reported. Jim?
Sarah, what would you say to critics who believe that this White House and this president have had almost sort of a steady pressure put on the Justice Department, put on the FBI since the president came into office on this special counsel investigation? Whether it be conversations with Jeff Sessions' office about his recusal, whether it be about this desire for Robert Mueller to go away, and now with Andrew McCabe. There were even reports that Rod Rosenstein was also feeling pressure from the White House. It sounds like there are multiple officials at multiple levels who are being pressured by the White House, by the president. What would you say in response to that
say what I've
concern?
said. I would say what I've said probably 100 times before, and continue. We'll say I'm sure 100 times today that the White House has been fully cooperative and is going to continue to be fully cooperative. In fact, we've gone above and beyond many times, and certainly done everything that we could. The White House has provided over 20 witnesses and tens of thousands of pages of documents to the special counsel. We have done everything we can to be fully transparent, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the process.
But what about this notion that the president has been applying pressure for months, steady pressure?
The only thing that the president has applied pressure to is to make sure we get this resolved so that you guys and everyone else can focus on the things that Americans actually care about. And that is making sure everybody gets the Russia fever out of their system once and for all, that you are all reminded once again there was no collusion, and that we can move forward to focus on things like national security, the economy, and solving the immigration crisis that we have here in our country.
So no obstruction of justice, nothing improper, nothing inappropriate here at all whatsoever from the president since he came into office when it comes to this investigation.
No, and I think we've been pretty clear on that. Stephen?
So I have a question about the Nunes memo, but first I want to ask you if the president continues to have confidence in the man he appointed to be Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
As I've said, when you guys ask this question about number of individuals, when the president no longer has confidence in someone, you'll know. On the memo, you had another question.
I do have another question about the memo. The House Intelligence Committee could vote as early as today to release this memo that Chairman Nunes has reportedly crafted. The House rules contemplate that the president would then get 5 days to determine whether he has any cause to object to its public release. What's the current thinking? What's the current level of White House involvement in this decision? Can you shed any light on the process between this White House and Capitol Hill with this question?
Look, no one at the White House has actually seen the memo, so it would be hard for us to make a decision or to speak about it before that would take place. Right now, we're letting the House process play out, and if and when it's time for the White House to weigh in, we'll do that through the proper protocol, making sure we follow legal process. But again, we're not to that point in the process yet. Margaret.
Sarah, two questions. Well, just following up on that, is the White House, I know you said you have to wait and see, but is the White House open to the idea of a release of this memo to the public? And can you say in the State of the Union address whether the president will mention at all this ongoing Russia probe, which you said, you know, is really Russia fever that the country needs to get out of its system? Will he address it in any way?
To answer your first question, we want full transparency to what we've said all along, and we'll make a decision when and if that time becomes necessary. In terms of the State of the Union, I'm not going to get ahead of the President's address. It's tomorrow night. I know you are all excited and will eagerly tune in and can see at that time exactly what is going to be included.
But he doesn't
April.
feel a need to address it.
I think we've addressed it every single day that we've been here. It's one of the questions you guys ask over and over and over again. In fact, we spend more time on that than we do any other topic, despite the fact that time and time again, poll after poll says that, frankly, no one cares about this issue, and it's certainly not the thing that keeps people up at night. We'd love to talk about all of the things that do, and my guess is that will be the focus of the President's State of the Union tomorrow. April.
Two topics. Back on the State of the Union. Typically, when the presidents give their State of the Union address, particularly this his first, presidents normally are optimistic when they say the state of our union is. What is the state of our union today?
I think it's incredible, and I think that you'll hear that in the president's words tomorrow night. Look, we've got an economy that is booming. ISIS is on the run. We're remaking the judiciary in a way that actually believes in upholding the Constitution. There are some great things happening in this country, and I think you can expect to hear the president talk about a lot of those, not only what we've been able to do in the first year, but all of the great things that we're going to do in the next 7 years after this.
On the second topic, I want to go to this issue of black unemployment. One, is the president going to start targeting black unemployment as he's saying that unemployment has gone down over his watch? I've never heard of a targeted approach from this administration. And is this administration aware that the black unemployment rate from December, 6.8%, the white unemployment rate is 3.7%, the Asian unemployment rate is 2.5%, and the Hispanic unemployment rate is 4.9%. The black unemployment rate continues to be higher, and it's actually 2 times that, more than 2 times that, of the white unemployment rate. So is that something that this administration is touting, or they're trying to fix, make an active effort to fix in 2018?
Look, I think you can see from the steps that we've already taken that we're trying to fix unemployment for all Americans. That's the point that the president has made time and time again, is that he wants it to be better for everybody. And we've made significant progress in that, both through the number of regulations that have been cut to make this a more job-friendly market, a more job-friendly environment, and certainly adding to that the tax cuts and tax reform legislation that the president led on has been historic in what has happened and in the way that it has helped our economy and certainly helped create jobs across the country.
Why did he take issue with Jay-Z then, when he was just talking in terms of black America? He took issue, has he seen my black, and he screamed with caps, all caps, has he seen my black unemployment number?
Because they're better than they have been, and we're certainly making progress, and we're wanting to continue to do that. Look, we want every day to be better than the day before. And again, certainly for black Americans, for Hispanic Americans, across the board, this is a president who wants life to be better for all Americans, and he's going to keep fighting and pushing for that. And I think you'll hear him talk about that again tomorrow night. John?
Thank you, Sarah. The former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, described Andrew McCabe as a dedicated public servant who has served this country well. Would you describe him in that same manner?
Look, I don't have a personal relationship with him, so I'm not going to describe him. I think we've talked about some of the concerns that we have with some of the actions that he's taken. But in terms of anything specific regarding the deputy director, particularly the news reports of today, I would refer you to the FBI. Francesca?
The president, based upon past tweets that he's put out regarding Mr. McCabe, does not seem to be a big fan of Mr. McCabe. Is he disappointed that he's leaving his post as the deputy FBI director?
I haven't asked him if he was disappointed. I can tell you he didn't play a role in any of that process, and again would refer you to the FBI for any specifics. Francesca?
Thank you, Sarah. In one of the president's tweets in December, though, he did say that Andrew McCabe is, quote, racing the clock to retire with full benefits, 90 days to go. So does the president believe that Andrew McCabe should be allowed to retire with full benefits?
Again, I would refer you to the FBI for any specifics around the news of today of his stepping down.
I have a question about the State of the Union. You mentioned who was going to be in the First Lady's box at the State of the Union. You talked about a lot of the different guests, but I didn't hear anything about the President's family. Can you say which of the President's family members will be there? And can you also potentially preview for some of the travel that the President might take? Usually the President takes travel to push his agenda afterwards.
In terms of family, all of the President's children, along with the First Lady, will be at the State of the Union with the exclusion of Barron. I don't believe he will be attending as of right now. And in terms of travel, we will keep you posted on any scheduling announcements that we have over the week. Margaret.
Thanks, Sarah. I want to ask you a question about the 5G network, but also before I do that, Treasury is set, I believe the deadline is today, to release 2 brushover moving reports in Congress. Can you tell us whether that's actually going to happen today and whether the names on the oligarchs list will be public and on the impact on sanctioning? Will portions of that be public also?
We do expect the reports today, and I would refer you to the Department of Treasury for any specifics on that as that happens.
So if that's something you guys can coordinate, that would be really helpful. On 5G...
We're coordinating, and I'm telling you that they're taking the lead, and for questions specific to it, you should reach out to the Department of Treasury in terms of timing.
I'll let them know that you said they can tell us. On 5G, I know there's a lot of speculation about what might happen and whether there is a security case to make for one secure network, but some experts, including the Republican FTC chair, I guess, are a little concerned about the idea of one nationalized network. Can you bring us up to speed on whether that idea is dead or very much still alive, where that stands?
Look, as we outlined in our national security strategy, I believe it was actually on page 19, a few people will be proud of me for memorizing that. We discussed the need for a secure network. Right now, we're in the very earliest stages of the conversation. There are absolutely no decisions made on what that would look like, what role anyone would play in it, simply the need for a secure network. And that is the only part of this conversation that we're up to right now.
Just one network or multiple possible?
Look, there are a lot of things on the table. Again, these are the very earliest stages of the discussion period, and there's been absolutely no decision made other than the fact the need for a secure network. Dave?
Thanks, Sarah. Tomorrow night, will the President talk about an urban revitalization plan?
As I said before, I'm not going to get into the details beyond what was already discussed last week on the State of the Union, but I do think it's something worth tuning into for all to see. I'll take one last question. Hunter?
Thank you, Sarah. So the President has repeatedly touted black unemployment when faced with allegations of racism. Given those numbers, the low black unemployment, why do you think so many in the African-American community are still so uncomfortable with the President?
That's a question you would have to ask them, but we hope and pray and expect to spend every day working to build a greater relationship within that community. And as I said before, with all Americans, this is a president who wants to lead for everybody. He's not looking to lead for any one person, any one group, but he wants to be the president of the United States. And I think that if you look at the policies that he has enacted over the first year, you can see that he's doing exactly that. He's building an economy that helps every American. He's cutting regulations that help every American. He's helping put ISIS on the run, which helps on the safety and security of all Americans. He's helping secure the border. He's helping to put an end to loopholes in our failed immigration system. All of those things benefit all Americans. That's what this president is focused on, and that's what we've done in our first year, and that's what we look forward to doing in the next 7 years. Thanks, guys.
Hi there and welcome to the briefing room. I'm ABC News Political Director Rick Klein, joined by Mike Levine, who covers the Justice Department for us here, Arlette Saenz from our Pennsylvania Avenue team, and we're going to be joined by some of our colleagues up at the White House and Capitol Hill in a few moments. But a very busy State of the Union eve, where the big news breaking just in the last hour or so is that Andrew McCabe, the number 2 at the FBI, very briefly the acting director of the FBI, has left the FBI. Mike can bring us up to date on a lot of the details, but this was a surprise surprise in terms of the timing. No one was really expecting this to happen today.
That's right. This is not a surprise that he left. People have been, for almost a year now, been thinking that once he became eligible for his retirement benefits that he was going to leave. We knew that might be, middle of this year. Then about a week or two ago, the FBI internally was saying how he was going to leave in March. And then today we learned that he's actually stepped down, that he's basically taking vacation until March, and then he'll get his benefits.
And I'm sure he deserves the vacation and the retirement and all that, but this is not a typical retirement, Mike, either. No one usually has heard of the deputy director of the FBI. This man has been in presidential tweets, and not for good reasons. He's come under withering attack from President Trump himself, who believes that his wife, who ran for state senate in Virginia, got a lot of contributions from Terry McAuliffe, who's close to the Clintons, was somehow biased, and a lot of questions around the FBI's handling of the Clinton email investigation and now the Trump investigation have centered on the person of Andrew McCabe.
Yes, McCabe has been under a tremendous amount of pressure, let's say, for the past several months. As you said, he became FBI director in an acting capacity after Comey was fired. He was dealing with a bunch of stuff then. Actually, in May of last year, just days after Comey was fired, I poked my head into an event going on in the Justice Department, and McCabe told those in attendance that he didn't think the day would come where the Benghazi investigation was the good old days. So that shows what type of pressure he's been under, and that was before Trump started targeting him over Twitter. So what's happened since, it's not surprising that McCabe wanted to get out of there. It's surprising, as you said, that he got out of there right now.
And Arlette, the other point is that just last week we find out that a conversation happened between President Trump and the FBI director, Chris Wray, where he talked about McCabe and vented frustration. We also learned that he asked McCabe, according to I think the Washington Post, who he voted for in the last election, which is kind of an interesting question for the brand new president. The White House today not taking a victory lap. They're going to let the FBI take the lead on this.
That's right. Sarah Sanders short while ago said that the FBI would be releasing a statement, but she did note that the president wasn't part of the decision-making process for Andrew McCabe to step aside. But of course, he was tweeting about Andrew McCabe in recent months, and that is a public pressure campaign that the president was essentially waging in many ways. But also, a lot of questions are now going to be raised about why now? Why not wait until March? Why go ahead and step aside 2 months early? And we'll see if the FBI or any other sources give us that kind of information.
I think one thing to note about timing of this is that Chris Wray, as he came in as the FBI director, people have been calling for him to clean house from the Comey folks and start bringing his own folks. Almost a week or two ago, a new general counsel of the FBI was announced. So now we're hearing that McCabe is leaving, going to have a vacancy for a new deputy director. It could all just be part of that.
Yeah, but the big difference between resigning or retiring or being pushed out or fired or just deciding, hey, you know what, enough of all of this. But Catherine Folder's over at the White House. Is it plausible that the White House didn't know about this until it broke publicly? The president has been so involved in this, talking to his attorney general and his FBI director about this one individual over such a long period of time.
Look, it is plausible. I mean, Sarah Sanders in the briefing wasn't even confirming the reports. She kept saying, if the reports are true. So definitely plausible. But it's something that got us thinking over here was literally right as this report broke, the White House travel pool had an event with the president, and that got delayed. So we were all predicting, that's probably because the president was being briefed on it. So yeah, it's plausible that he wasn't briefed on it. Sarah Sanders said that she didn't have any specific comments associated with it, and that she hadn't spoken to the president about whether he was disappointed in this or not. So I think behind the scenes they're still trying to get their act together on how to respond to this specific news. But it's possible that the president was briefed, and they're still trying to get that statement together, as Arlette noted.
And this intersects with the broader Russia investigation in a pretty direct way. The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., on Twitter noting that he's getting out at the same time that the House Intelligence Committee is talking about releasing a memo that was prepared by Republican staff there that talks about purported efforts to undermine the FISA process in connection with the Russia investigation. And Mike Levine, we know we're going to be waiting word from the Intelligence Committee in a little bit. The White House has made it known that they would like to see this memo out there. How impactful is this memo likely to be ultimately?
We don't know. The Justice Department just last week sent a letter to Nunes saying,
but the secrecy, it's release the memo.
I mean, the Justice Department itself hasn't seen this memo.
Yeah.
It could be based on information from the Justice Department, but the department has not seen the actual memo. They say that the release of it would be extraordinarily reckless and could endanger national security.
And Arlette, this is overhanging everything around the presidency, and the State of the Union is tomorrow, but there's like almost no buzz about it. No one's talking about that because of all the fervor on Russia. You heard again from Sarah Sanders today. We want everyone to break the fever of Russia coverage. We want it all to be out there. Still, though, a lot of moving pieces that have to get into place before you can get to that final piece of it. And this very active effort to undermine the FBI's integrity, which is connected to McCabe and maybe connected to this memo.
That's right. Last week we had those reports out that the president was seeking, ordering the firing of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. That is bringing up more questions about the investigation. And also, we're still waiting to find out, is the president actually going to sit down with Mueller and what those terms might be? Last week, the president indicated he was interested in sitting down and talking to him. His lawyer said, oh, wait, not so fast. We're still negotiating all of that, trying to figure it out. But we are starting to enter this phase in the Russia investigation where if the president's going to have to sit in front of Robert Mueller and answer questions, it's going to take us into some new territory.
And that news about the apparent effort to fire Mueller broke while the president was in Davos. He reacted to it very briefly, just said, fake news, folks, fake news. This is the first time the White House is on camera responding. What did we hear from Sarah Sanders, to your mind, that was interesting?
Well, Cecilia Vega asked her about that, and she said that she was not aware of the president asking anyone on his staff to do that. Now, could he have asked someone?
To make point, she wasn't even the press secretary at the time.
Right.
This would have happened.
So, we'll have to see what else the White House kind of has to say about this in the coming days. They really haven't said much besides the president calling it fake news, but that's a question that a lot of people are going to be asking.
Catherine Folders over at the White House, what did you make of that?
Yeah, I think I was speaking with somebody earlier inside the White House who mentioned, each time that these stories, these news stories drop, whether it was that the president ordered the firing of Mueller, it sets the negotiation process back a step, right, with the lawyers, with the special counsel. So somebody I was speaking to earlier predicted that maybe in the next 2 weeks or so we may have some agreement between the two parties, but it definitely murkies, the water a little bit here. And frankly, in the negotiations, whether they want the president to sit down in person or answer a questionnaire, it obviously adds that element there in terms of perjury. So the lawyers are still negotiating that. But just in terms of what the White House said, it's kind of similar to what they've been saying on this the whole time. They defer to this White House special counsel, Ty Cobb, who's the lawyer inside the White House, and along with his two lawyers outside the White House to really stay involved and answer questions on this.
And Mike Levine, before we let you go, how does this impact, or any of this maneuvering or the questioning of FBI's leadership, how does it impact the investigation itself that's going on with FBI agents as part of Mueller's team?
Well, if you listen to what everyone who knows Mueller says, it doesn't impact it at all. He is a man who always keeps his head down, he does what he needs to do, and he gets the job done. So his followers believe. And
the extracurriculars continue. All right, Mike Levine, we'll let you get back to the
Thank
beat.
you.
Appreciate it. We're going to move on and talk about the State of the Union right now, and let's start with Catherine over at the White House. Any details today that struck your mind? We learned a little bit about the First Lady's box and the visitors that will be featured. They all have a kind of a story to tell.
Oh, right, exactly. And I'm reading this from what Sarah said in the briefing. She said, among those guests who will join is a welder from Ohio who recently became a first-time homeowner, two couples whose children were killed by MS-13 gang members, and a wounded veteran who became first blinded double amputee to re-enlist in the Marines. So she revealed those today in the briefing, and I think in terms of the specifics, the theme of this is building a safe, strong, and proud America. And we know that what White House officials are saying will be this optimistic and inclusive speech that will focus on immigration, trade, among some of the issues. But we don't have too many specifics on it right now. And if you remember from that joint address he gave, the president gave to Congress over a year ago, and many at the time branded that as one of the best speeches ever. A flood of news followed that. So we expect him to stick to message, but who knows what could come after that.
The state of our union is incredible, according to Sarah Sanders. Arlette, what do you think? Arlette, could that come out of the president's lips tomorrow? The State of the Union is
incredible. Is that a word that he uses that often?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I can see that. But look, I mean, you saw recently the president in Davos. He's pretty much stuck to the script and stayed on message with the State of the Union. I think that's what the White House is hoping will probably happen tomorrow night, him touting the accomplishments of the past year and also try to push forward on things like infrastructure, which he wants to get accomplished in the next year. We'll see if that actually happens on the Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and we'll see if it matters if he stays on message for even a day. But let's turn up to Capitol Hill, because there's news today that there's going to be some new negotiations, a new round of negotiations, a new deadline, of course, of next Thursday for the latest round of government funding. Ali Rogan joining us on Capitol Hill. The Dreamers and immigration talks, how do things stand today? Any rumblings coming out of Capitol Hill?
Well, I think the last big milestone, Rick, was this announcement on Friday of the president's new framework that he has released, which actually expands the universe of Dreamers that are eligible for protections that the White House is willing to provide. They open it up to 1.8 people who were brought here as children. That is in addition, that is including folks who didn't actually apply for the current DACA protections. Some folks involved in this negotiations have said this is a breakthrough. Senator Lindsey Graham, who's been sort of doing some shuttle diplomacy up here on Capitol Hill. But Democrats, as you can imagine, are saying this is a non-starter. They don't like that the president is insisting on $25 billion to build that gigantic wall. We do know that this smaller group of what's known as the number twos around here, the deputies in the House and the Senate, they're going to be meeting today to discuss a way forward. But Rick, as you mentioned, that new deadline, February 8th, that is when the current funding for the government runs out, and that's when leadership on Capitol Hill and at the White House is hoping to get a deal on immigration. But Rick, I wouldn't hold my breath. There are still a lot of distance between the parties up here. So in terms of getting a major immigration deal and a government funding agreement by next Thursday, I don't know if that really seems likely. It could be that we have another stopgap measure to then push the ball forward a little bit to that point where they get to the big deal here, Rick.
And thank you for that, Ali. And the president talked about it a little bit earlier today. Our colleague Jonathan Karl managed to get a question into the president asking about the next steps. Take a listen to what was said earlier.
Mr. President, how's the speech coming? How's the State of the Union coming?
Well, I hope it's going to be good. We worked on it hard, cover a lot of territory, including our great success with the markets and with the tax cut. And it's a big speech, an important speech. We cover immigration, and for many years, they've been talking immigration. They never got anything done. We're going to get something done. We hope it's got to be bipartisan, because the Republicans really don't have the votes to get it done in any other way. So it has to be bipartisan. But hopefully the Democrats will join us, or enough of them will join us, so we can really do something great for DACA and for immigration generally.
Are you going to bring Senator Schumer down here again?
Wouldn't mind.
So possibility of Chuck Schumer coming back to the White House, we know that this has been kind of fits and starts. The framework was put out on Friday, but this is a high-stakes moment for the White House. It's possibly a leadership moment, but it's a big possibility of failure here all over again.
That's right, and they're really facing that February 8th deadline, and then also the March 5th deadline of when DACA is set to expire. But look, both President Trump and Chuck Schumer are deal makers when it comes down to it. That's what they say they like to do. We'll see if they could actually get in a room and hammer out a deal after Schumer had already offered something to the president. He said in an interview over the weekend that if the president can't accept what I had previously offered, then maybe he should stay away. But bottom line here is any immigration plan that's going to get passed up on the Hill has to have the sign-off of the president. So that number twos meeting that Ali was talking about, that might be the best hope up on Capitol Hill to corral people's sentiments around this. But we'll have to see if they're actually able to strike any type of deal. I don't know if it'll happen by February 8th.
And so coming up really quickly. And finally, the president was all over the place at the Grammys last night, a very political awards event. And a moment that struck a lot of people as curious, perhaps. The president, obviously nowhere near this award show, but Hillary Clinton, his one-time rival, among those who's there reading from the very controversial book Fire and Fury, the Michael Wolff book that had a lot of access, a lot of questionable sourcing, and all the rest. Social media lit up after this, and you saw some real fierce reaction to Hillary Clinton herself. The White House wasn't asked about it in any way today, but a lot of the president's allies have been making the point that, look, this is just not an appropriate thing to be doing, to be reading from a book with that kind of questionable sourcing.
Yeah, and the ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, she was out with a tweet last night criticizing not just Hillary Clinton's involvement, but the overall involvement of mocking this book that the White House doesn't exactly like.
And Ali Rogan, you know a thing or two about music, or so I'm told. Is the Grammys resonating on Capitol Hill? Anyone buzzing about the awards last night?
No, I would say there's a lot up here that's occupying Congress's time, and as you know, they're all traveling back to work today. Monday is usually a bit of a travel day. I'm sure they're all relieved because it means they don't have to weigh in on this. Fun fact, Rick, guess who was at the Grammys last night? Senator Orrin Hatch, who actually, you might not know this, but he is a platinum recording artist. He has composed an album with his wife and has written a platinum song. So I know he was there, so maybe we'll get him to weigh in on the whole controversy. But Rick, as you know, this is a constant back and forth between people in authority who, when artists come out and express their disagreement with their policies and their positions, they say basically shut up and sing. And so it is a time-honored tradition, tension between people in power and people in the arts community who have a large voice. So this is nothing new, and it's probably going to continue under President Trump.
And if the selfie is to be believed, it looked like Orrin Hatch was up in the cheap seats.
Yeah, he didn't have that great of a seat.
Just saying. I don't know. Maybe senators are just like us. All right, Ali Rogan on Capitol Hill, thank you. Our thanks to Arlette Saenz as well. That does it for this edition of The Briefing Room. We're going to be back tomorrow night with a very exciting State of the Union coverage starting at 8:15 p.m. We're going to be at the Hawk and Dove, Devin Dwyer and Tara Palmieri among us. Our broadcast starts tomorrow at 9 o'clock, but at 8:15 we have that pregame. Don't forget to download the ABC News app. And for all of us here at ABC News, thanks for watching The Briefing Room. We'll see you back here next time.